This is Story Recap. Today, I'm going to explain a drama, romance, and sci-fi film called The Space Between Us. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. Nathaniel Shepard, the CEO of Genesis Space Technologies, announces the launch of Magellan 61. His childhood dream had been to live on Mars, so he reveals East Texas, Mars, the settlement his company built on the Red Planet. He then introduces the 6 astronauts who will pioneer this massive endeavor. Lead astronaut Sarah Elliott shares that although she's afraid, she believes that courage is born out of fear once overcome. Later, Magellan 61 soars through the Earth's atmosphere and successfully makes contact with a space station that will take them to Mars. 2 months later, Sarah finds out that she's pregnant, so the Genesis team holds an emergency meeting. Tom Chen is worried about NASA's reaction. However, Nathaniel decides to keep Sarah's pregnancy a secret. His team looks apprehensive at the idea, but he reminds everyone that this matter is no longer simply a Genesis decision. Sarah is no longer just an astronaut, but is now also a mother. Months pass by, and the space station finally arrives on Mars. Immediately, Sarah goes into labor and gives birth to a healthy baby boy. However, she starts convulsing shortly after, suffering from postpartum preeclampsia. Despite their best efforts, Sarah passes away. Nathaniel watches everything through a monitor and warns. Nathaniel tells his team it's not feasible to bring the newborn down to Earth. Having been in the womb in zero gravity affected the composition of the baby's body, making him unable to withstand Earth's gravity. Concerned about the potential PR nightmare, Nathaniel offers to send himself to Mars. Tom refuses, given that Nathaniel has hydrocephalus. Although benign, it can become fatal if exposed to unknown factors in space. In the end, they decide to keep the child's existence a secret. After 16 years, East Texas has flourished into a bustling settlement, and Gardner Elliott has grown into a smart young man. He orders Centaur, his self-proclaimed robot best friend, to draw him a map of the settlement's ventilation system. Centaur refuses, saying that's classified information. Reminding Centaur that he helped build him, Gardner forcibly detaches Centaur's head to hack into his system, gaining access to the map himself. His plans are cut short when he receives a message from Kendra, one of the astronauts he's closest to. Gardner rushes through the facility to get back to his workstation at the greenhouse. Kendra asks him why she can't reach Centaur, suspicious that Gardner is up to something. He denies her claims and easily fixes the broken water pipe she assigns him. Kendra praises him for the job, but Gardner bitterly tells her his skills are useless if no one knows he exists. Later, Gardner sneaks through the ventilation system into the storage facility. He easily gains access and looks for the locker where his late mother's belongings are kept. When he finds it, he hurriedly takes everything back to his quarters. Gardner looks through Sarah's items where he finds a ring and flash drive containing footage of her. He watches Sarah run and play around a beach house with an unknown man. Gardner prints a screen capture of the two, sure that the man is his father. He gets a notification on his computer from Tulsa, a high school girl who's bounced between foster homes all her life. Tulsa tells Gardner she can't wait to go on a road trip and leave her miserable life behind when she turns 18. Gardner wishes to go with her, so Tulsa invites him. Lying, he repeats his cover story that he's confined in a penthouse somewhere on Park Avenue because of his bone disease. Later, Kendra finds Gardner rewatching an old German movie about an angel who fell to Earth and became human after falling in love with a woman. Meanwhile, Tulsa enters an empty music room. After checking that she's alone, she plays the piano but gets found by some boys peeking through the window. She makes a run for it and rides her motorcycle away as they taunt her. She arrives at her foster home, where her foster father, Chuck, is passed out on the couch. She remembers Chuck is supposed to be at work and drags him out to fly his crop duster plane over the fields. On Mars, Gardner sneaks out of the settlement station, bypassing the door's electronic lock using the magnetic implant in his heart. He rides through the Martian terrain to visit his mother's grave. Filled with emotions, Gardner drives the buggy recklessly until his vehicle capsizes, damaging his suit. Thankfully, Kendra arrives. She hurriedly uprights Gardner's buggy and adjusts his spacesuit, helping him breathe again. Back at the station, Kendra scolds Gardner for sneaking out. She asks if there's anything wrong, and Gardner curtly replies that he only wanted to visit his mother. Kendra reveals that Sarah's ashes were scattered across the Pacific Ocean. Understanding Gardner's sadness, Kendra contacts Nathaniel, who has been living in seclusion since the incident 16 years ago. Kendra suggests that they let Gardner fly down to Earth since he desperately needs a connection to his roots. Nathaniel vehemently rejects the idea, saying it's too dangerous. Tom surprises him with the news that NASA is in favor of bringing the boy to Earth, urging Nathaniel that this is their chance to right a wrong. Gardner is ecstatic to hear the news. He immediately tells Tulsa that a cure to his disease has been found. He undergoes surgery, injecting his bones with the carbon nanotubes to increase their density. He also begins training his body with Kendra to help with his enlarged heart. Secretly, he steals some cash and passport from the lockers of other scientists in the station. After months of preparation, Gardner is finally cleared to fly Earth. He asks Kendra if she will visit her ex-husband when they land. She replies no and recounts that they divorced after he found out she's unable to have kids. Kendra assures Gardner not to worry, as motherhood wasn't part of her career plan at the time. Gardner asks her to accompany him to meet his father, but Kendra reveals that no one knows who his father is. Nathaniel hacks into the station's records and sees that Gardner's room is empty. He checks the names of the crew bound to Earth and sees Gardner's name on the list. Nathaniel leaves his secluded mansion and drives to Genesis headquarters to meet the boy. The cruise pod finally enters the Earth's atmosphere, landing by the ocean. The Genesis scientists perform routine checks to ensure the crew's body adjusts smoothly back on Earth. They take special care of Gardner, who is having difficulty walking but is looking in awe at the blue ocean. Gardner is taken to a lab where they run tests to check his body's compatibility with the Earth's atmosphere. While in quarantine, Nathaniel introduces himself to Gardner, and they have an awkward conversation about each other's respective birth planets. Gardner asks Nathaniel what his favorite thing on Earth is, to which the older man answers rain. Kendra interrupts their meeting to announce that they found inconsistencies in Gardner's lab results and would need to run more tests. Afraid that this means that they will send him back to Mars, Gardner escapes by tipping the room's pressure, forcing the door to open automatically. He runs through the massive facility, grabbing a spacesuit for touring students to blend in. Nathaniel spots him in the security videos, ordering a lockdown as security personnel run after the boy. Gardner then steals a worker's clothes and uses the metal plate in his heart to disarm the lock on the door. He hitches a ride inside a cargo truck that takes him out of the facility. Nathaniel organizes a search party with the police to find Gardner. They tell the authorities a cover story that the boy immediately needs a heart transplant. Kendra is worried that Nathaniel is more focused on keeping Gardner a secret, so Nathaniel shows her he also brought ambulances, proving he's indeed worried for Gardner's well-being. Gardner sneaks out of the cargo truck while the attendants aren't looking. Not used to the gravity, he almost gets hit by an oncoming vehicle, but luckily jumps away. Gardner explores the neighborhood and chances upon a homeless man whom he asks for directions to Colorado. He then asks him what his favorite thing on Earth is, which the man answers that it's dreaming. Gardner arrives at the bus station when it suddenly starts to rain. Everyone rushes to take cover, but Gardner steps out and embraces the rain for the first time. Kendra deduces that Gardner is on his way to meet Tulsa, as she's the only person he knows on Earth. Together with Nathaniel, they ride a helicopter to Tulsa's foster home. Gardner, however, heads to Tulsa's high school, where he tries his best to blend in awkwardly. He finds Tulsa and immediately greets her. To his surprise, Tulsa slaps him for ghosting her for the last 7 months. Gardner explains that he couldn't contact her, but could not tell her the truth. Tulsa begrudgingly forgives him, admitting that she didn't want the only person she doesn't hate to disappear on her. Gardner shows her the photo he printed of his mother and father and asks for her help in finding him. They ride Tulsa's motorcycle, and Gardner enjoys the wind in his face. While Tulsa heads inside her house to get some cash, Nathaniel and Kendra arrive. They tell Gardner his life is in danger, but Gardner shouts back that he only wants to find his father as he's the only one he has left. Kendra reminds him that he has her too, but Gardner retorts that she never wanted kids. He apologizes that she had to raise him and runs. Tulsa hears the whole exchange and runs after him. Kendra almost catches up to Gardner when Tulsa arrives on Chuck's plane. Gardner grabs onto the plane and they fly off. Their celebration is short-lived when Tulsa admits she doesn't know how to fly the aircraft. Having trouble with the oil pressure, they are forced to land, crashing the plane into a barn. They jump at the last second before the explosion and escape. Nathaniel and Kendra see the explosion and run to the site, assuming the worst. Tom informs them that they found no bodies in the wreck, which means that Gardner and Tulsa are alive. Nathaniel looks relieved, but blames Kendra for not looking after Gardner properly. But Kendra argues that he abandoned Gardner in East Texas 16 years ago. Tulsa steals a car despite Gardner's disapproval. Because of his odd mannerisms, Tulsa asks Gardner again where he's from. This time, he truthfully answers that he's from Mars, and his mother died during childbirth. Tulsa gets mad, thinking that he's lying. She unloads on him that all her life people always lied and threw her aside when she's no longer useful. Gardner swears that he's telling the truth, apologizing for the hard life she's been living until now. Tulsa takes them to a diner and sneaks to use an unattended table. She searches Sarah Elliott on the internet and sees that she was indeed an astronaut who died on Mars 16 years ago, but there's no mention of Gardner anywhere. Tulsa acknowledges that at least parts of Gardner's story are true. He shows her his mother's ring, so they search the meaning of the inscription around the band and find that it means eternal love and Havasupai, a language spoken in Arizona. Tulsa deduces that it might be a wedding ring, therefore his father must have the other half. They take note of the man who made the ring and head to Arizona. Nathaniel and Kendra miss them yet again. In a mixture of self-anger and regret, he admits to Kendra that his choice 16 years ago still kills him. Kendra receives news that Gardner's blood has elevated levels of troponin. His heart cannot withstand the Earth's atmosphere and gravity. With no time to lose, they resume their search. Meanwhile, Gardner watches the colorful hot air balloons floating along the horizon as he happily eats his 5th burger. With Gardner's innocent excitement, Tulsa can't help but admire the beautiful view and smile. They head to a department store to change clothes and get supplies. After changing, Gardner finds Tulsa in a dress, playing a keyboard in the middle of the store. Gardner listens as Tulsa sings softly, but she abruptly stops when she spots him. Nathaniel and Kendra arrive moments later, but they've already left. They watch security footage of the pair, wondering why they're heading to New Mexico. Gardner is now on the wheel, but he can't keep his eyes off Tulsa, and tells her that she's beautiful. Tulsa tries to play it cool, but is visibly flattered. She argues that people just don't say what they truly feel like he does. People lie to put up guards, but Gardner doesn't understand why people do that. That night, they dance under the stars and kiss for the first time. Gardner tells Tulsa that he believes that he will fall in love with her and fall to Earth, like the fallen angel in the German movie. Later, they lay together in their camping bags. Gardner explores Tulsa's body with his touches, but to her surprise, he only moves to pull the covers over her. He tells her that all of the things Earth has made him feel, nothing compares to what he feels when he's with her. They finally arrive in Arizona and meet the ring maker. He tells them that he's married many couples over the years. Fortunately, he has an address on file from the ring's invoice. Borrowing his computer, Tulsa locates the address in Summerlin, California, and confirms it's indeed the beach house in Gardner's photo. Gardner's nose starts bleeding as his body begins to fail. He hurriedly wipes the blood away just in time before Tulsa sees it. They then head to California but stop by Las Vegas, where Gardner becomes overwhelmed by the flashing lights until he faints. Tulsa brings him to a hospital where doctors discover his enlarged heart and fortified bones. Realizing that Gardner hasn't been lying to her, she tries to leave him behind so he can be treated while she finds his father for him. Gardner stops her, telling her there's nothing the doctors can do. Tulsa eventually gives in and they escape the hospital in another stolen car. Meanwhile, Nathaniel guesses where they're headed and takes a private plane to California. Gardner looks deathly pale when they arrive at the beach house. He looks over the vast ocean and gathers the courage to finally meet his father. They find the man in the photograph sitting at the table. Wordlessly, Gardner hands him the photo and reveals that he's Sarah's son, and that he's the father. The man strongly denies this, threatening to call the police. Enraged, Tulsa confronts the man and demands he show some empathy for his son. The man reveals that he's not Sarah's husband, but her brother. Tulsa turns to Gardner, but he's nowhere in sight. They find him on the beach, running towards the water. Tulsa runs after him, telling him that the man is his uncle. Still, Gardner is already too sick. He tells Tulsa that he may not have been able to choose where he was born, but he at least wants to choose where he dies. He asks Tulsa what her favorite thing on Earth is, and Tulsa answers that it's him. Gardner kisses her and jumps into the ocean. Tulsa fights with the waves, trying to pull him in, but is unsuccessful. Gardner lays motionless, thinking back on all his happy memories with Tulsa. Just then, Nathaniel pulls him out of the water. Barely conscious, Gardner asks Nathaniel what his mother was like. Nathaniel lovingly recalls Sarah, and Gardner realizes who his real father is. Nathaniel confirms his suspicions, finally admitting Gardner as his son. Gardner faints with a smile on his face. Racing against time, they wheel Gardner to Nathaniel's private aircraft and fly him off the Earth's gravity. Kendra hesitates, worried Nathaniel's brain condition might get triggered, but he insists, knowing it's the only way to save his son. Gardner finally wakes up in zero gravity as his body stabilizes. Tulsa joins him, but she realizes that this means Gardner has to go back. Devastated, Gardner professes his love for her, and Tulsa responds in kind. Genesis schedules another mission to take Gardner back to Mars. Kendra bids him goodbye, telling him that she will miss him. Gardner replies that he will too, and adds that she's the best mother he could have asked for. Tulsa arrives to see him off, barely holding back tears. Gardner tells her that he had the best time of his life with her. Beside him in the rocket is Nathaniel, whose brain condition is now confirmed safe for space travel. Gardner and Tulsa remain in touch through video calls and chats. Kendra unexpectedly visits Tulsa to offer to adopt her and take her home back to Colorado. Wary at first, Tulsa eventually smiles and accepts. Although retired as an astronaut, Kendra now runs NASA's training program where she trains Tulsa to eventually go to space. Meanwhile, Gardner gives Nathaniel a tour of Mars, where the father and son are happy to live on the red planet.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.